Welcome to Season 3 of Reverse the Rebound Weight Gain. My name is Georgie Beams, and I'm a registered psychologist with over 10 years of experience working exclusively in food cravings, eating, and weight. I've helped thousands of women all around the world in my 3-month intensive program. Eating isn't about willpower, it's about your mind. Disordered eating is a mental health issue, not a personal failure. Weight loss surgery, weight loss medications, and dieting can't fix the root cause. The podcast is here to help you uncover your eating triggers, heal your relationship with food, and rewire your brain for lasting change. Let's transform from surviving to thriving together. Welcome to Season 3. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 6 of Reverse the Rebound Weight Gain. Today, we are going to unpack cravings and childhood, understanding the root of your eating behaviours. This episode I think it's pretty amazing, but I just wish I had found this information decades ago when I was really struggling. When I was really struggling, I thought my issue was just a lack of willpower, a lack of control, and I didn't realize what was happening inside my body, inside my system, and I'm going to unpack it all for you today. What I'm going to share with you is just a recent training that I provided my clients in my 3-month intensive. So I thought it was so good that I wanted to share it with you all on the podcast. Before we get into it, I just wanted to share a personal update with you. So you might recall episode 1, I shared with you that we were about to embark on a new adventure and head off to Tasmania, which was a big move for us from Melbourne. As it turns out, we are not there. We are back in Melbourne. The move didn't happen. It's kind of life. It hasn't been easy. Let me tell you, it has been a very challenging time. But essentially, we'd packed up 70% of our house. We were 1 week out from moving. I had the boys enrolled in a new school. Everything was ready to go, and my darling husband just couldn't do it. So it was just really affecting his mental health in a negative way, and it's just not worth it. It's not worth anyone's mental health. Lucky he's married to a psychologist. So it didn't happen. I was pretty upset, to be honest. And lucky we hadn't rented out our house. So we came back. We enrolled the boys in a new school, and they basically started the next day. And that's been challenging, just settling them into a new school, particularly Harvey, who is my 9-year-old, just coming in year 4 with established friendships and starting from scratch. So it's been a lot. It's been a wild ride, but it's kind of life. And I just wanted to be honest and transparent and share that with you that, life is full of ups and downs. There are always triggers, and it's how we choose to respond. So I've really been trying to practice what I preach, to navigate all of this. It hasn't been easy. I think I'm doing pretty well at the moment. There are a few weeks that were quite challenging and all the big feelings. And I've just been giving myself time and grace and doing my own processing work with my tools such as EMDR and tapping, and that's made a huge difference. So we're in Melbourne. I don't really know what the plan is anymore. And do you know what? I don't need the plan. I think that's my biggest lesson from all of this is just to be in that messy middle, where, there's no plan. There's no plan, and not needing the plan at the moment, and actually being okay with that and leaning into that discomfort, because we know in this area of eating and weight, we love control and we love the plan and we love the lists and everything. And I just had to rip that up and throw it all out and just go day by day. So that's been where I'm at. Hope this personal share has has resonated with you as well. But what I'm going to share next is a new resource that I shared with the ladies in my 3-month intensive, where we go deeper with our eating and weight and really uncover the root cause behind our eating. And it's probably not what you think. It's very much related to childhood. I've done a lot of healing work myself in this area, and in my 3-month intensive, this is exactly what we do as well. So I'll share it with you, and I hope you find it to be really insightful and gives you a whole new awareness and framework around your eating and weight. So enjoy. And if you would like the worksheet that goes with it, I'd be more than happy to share that with you as well. So I just want to share some more information how our healthy adult version 2 parts and our child parts are related to your eating. So we can just dive a little bit deeper and unpack that a little bit more around some of those deeper reasons as to what might be going on below the surface. So the first thing is we are a sum of many parts. So you probably know, sometimes you feel like you've got the angel on one shoulder, you've got the devil on the other shoulder. So this is like, I really want to be good. And this part's like, come on, eat the chocolate. We'll start again tomorrow, right? And sometimes it feels like a real kind of push and pull and an inner conflict that's going on. And our system is extremely complex with all of these different parts. So we all have a healthy adult part that wants the best for us. This is version 2, that wants you to thrive, that does all the things that support that. And then we have other parts. So we have a controlling part, we have an anxious part, we have a part that holds shame. So we are a very complex system, and often we really don't appreciate what's going on underneath the surface. So, as I mentioned, we all have a healthy adult version 2 part, which is really living in the present moment. So, when and I typically find this is when we're out of our head and we're in our body and we're plugged in and we're connected, and maybe we're catching up with loved ones, or we're out in nature, walking the dog, or patting the cat, or whatever that looks like for you. And we're in the present moment. And in the present moment, everything feels more calm and at peace, or you feel empowered. This is when we are stepped into our version 2 healthy adult part, who is in charge of the wheel behind our car, so to speak. So if our car represents us as a system, when our version 2 healthy adult part is behind the wheel, we're doing all of those things that support us thriving. Then we all have wounded child parts, and these wounded child parts are stuck in the past in trauma time. So, with our subconscious mind, so that everything is stored in our body, whether we are aware of it or not. All of our trauma is stored in our body, whether we are aware of it or not. And it doesn't matter that something happened 3 or 4 decades ago. In our mind, we can minimize it and think, that shouldn't really have an impact on me now because it was so long ago in the past, or it could have been so much worse than other people. Our system doesn't recognize that. Our system has no time and date stamp in our subconscious mind where everything is stored. So if there's trauma there, and I'll talk a little bit about what trauma is, big T and little t trauma, there's no date and time stamp. So if something happened to you when you were 5 years old that is unprocessed, it is still sitting in your system, and there's a wounded child part that is holding on to the trauma. And it could have happened yesterday if this part has been triggered. So it doesn't matter that it happened so long ago. Now, these wounded child parts, as I mentioned, they are stuck in the past. So if something happened at 5 years old, you've got a little part that still feels 5 years old, that is holding on to the trauma, that doesn't realize that you're now 55 years old, for instance, and you're safe now and you're no longer in danger. These wounded child parts, when they're stuck, they feel like they're still in danger. Now, talking about trauma, many of us are really familiar with big T trauma. So this is typically a one-off event. So it could be a car accident. It could be a fire. It could be a sexual assault or sexual abuse, etc. So this is known as big T trauma, and this is often when many people get PTSD, where they might have flashbacks and other sort of symptoms later on in life that are related to this big T trauma. And of course, what I love about EMDR is it's the gold standard for trauma, which is why I love it, because we get the body involved to heal. And then there's little T trauma, and these are more attachment ruptures. Now, I've been doing this work for a very, very long time. I've seen hundreds of clients over the years, and I would say 98% of clients have some form of little T, and many don't even realize that it's there. So often when there's no big T trauma and there's just little T trauma, often clients will think, oh, well, there wasn't violence or there wasn't a child sexual assault, so therefore I had a good, quote unquote, upbringing. But a little T trauma is very, very common, and trauma in general is common in the area of disordered eating. And little T trauma can be, for instance, if your parents worked full time and very, very busy, or you were alone a lot in the house when that happened, or maybe you had a parent who had some mental health issues or issues with alcohol or drugs, or maybe you had a very critical parent. Maybe you had a parent that you needed to parent, that you felt like an adult, or just really little T trauma. A very simple way that I think is quite good to understand is anytime a young part, so when you were growing up, that you had to take on an adult perspective. Because what we know is that children really blame themselves. So, for instance, if there were issues in your parents' relationship, often the child can blame themselves or feel like it's their responsibility to fix the problem. And this is where little T happens. And often little T happens over and over and over and over again over time. Things like bullying, teasing, just messages that you received growing up that you weren't good enough, that you had to lose weight, etc., is all this little T trauma that we store in our system, and often we don't realize what an impact that it has on our eating today. So when we are not triggered, so when we are really in our version 2 adult self, we are regulated in our nervous system. So we are sitting up the top of the ladder in this safe pathway. We are feeling connected. We are plugged in. We are in the present moment. And we know we're in version 2 adult when our narrative and our inner dialogue might be, I can do this, or I'm strong, or I'm kind, or I can persevere, or I'm open to changing. Now, version 2 isn't perfect. So the perfectionism is actually a part that's more version 1. Version 2 is more realistic, and she's very much around, look, I know that I need to put the work in and I'm going to show up and do my best, or I'm going to chip away. Rome isn't built in a day. It's more patience. It's more flexibility. And we know when the adult is in charge, leads to these version 2 behaviours that will keep us on our path, whether that's the meal planning, the prepping, doing this homework, tuning in, prioritising yourself, setting boundaries, whatever that looks like. But when we get triggered, we feel unsafe. So when we get triggered, we move down the ladder and we're either in the anxious pathway or dysfunctional freeze. Both are in survival mode. And what happens is it leads to dysregulation in our system. So anytime we get triggered, our wounded child part is in charge because she feels unsafe. Okay. And often this can be unsafe emotionally, not necessarily feeling physically unsafe. And we know when our wounded child part is in charge, the narrative sounds like this. I'm a failure. I'm overwhelmed. I'm destined to be big. I can't change. I need to be perfect. Others' needs are more important than mine. Fill in the blank, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And because this little one is stuck in trauma time, It's like when you get triggered, you press play on this old recording. So it's actually the feeling is the same from back here, but this part is not in danger anymore, but this part doesn't know it. So the wounded child part is in charge when it leads to this version 1 behaviors like the eating, once I start, I can't stop, binging, secret eating, and all the other things, even sleeping, just staying up late, starting again tomorrow, however that plays out for you. And what I typically find is we have all little wounded child parts. So, we've got the teenage here, which is that real effort. I know what I'm doing, that rebel, and then, different ages as well. And what I typically find is unless we are really tuned in, and I wish I knew this back in the day, our child parts are often in charge of our system much more than the adult. So, the first thing I want you to recognize during your day is just start high level. Is the adult in charge or is there a child part in charge? It's like a yes or no. And I'll go through what that looks like in this next slide. We know the adult is in charge when we're open to changing, when we have belief in ourselves, when we have a sense of flexibility, progress over perfection. We trust ourselves, we trust the process, we feel hopeful that we can change, we can see and recognize our strengths and our resources in ourselves. We're also very realistic, so we're quite patient. We're just consistently just doing those little things every day that we know are going to make a big difference. And we take that personal responsibility and we have that self-discipline to put the work in, knowing that nothing changes if nothing changes, right? The behaviors we would see if our adult 2.0 is in charge are these consistent small steps, self awareness, tuning in, even just realizing and being aware of is it the adult in charge or the child in charge, leaning into discomfort, sitting with feelings, challenging our thoughts, just all of those things that we are really doing in the program together. Now, we know if a child part is in charge, if it's more rigid thinking, so it's a very black and white, so it's success or failure, I'm good or I'm bad. Really overly focused on being perfect as well and feeling like I need to fix everything. I'm broken. I need to fix myself and I need to do it by tomorrow. So it's not very realistic. And there's a lot going on in your system as well when a child part is in charge. So it feels very overwhelming. There are a lot of big feelings, and it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, for the child to sit with them, right? A lot of excuses like, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. I'll start again tomorrow. Looking at external outside of yourself with the excuses versus taking that personal responsibility. And the behaviors that we would see if a wounded child part is in charge is all or nothing thinking, just continuing with the old behaviors. So continuing with the eating, not leading into any discomfort, not trying any processes, just really also believing the narrative that I can't do this, I can't change. And also no self-discipline as well. So I can't do hard things. I can't show up for myself. Now, I also want to normalize all of this for you. We all, including me, have these child parts. And we also, all of us, have a version 2 adult self as well. So it is very, very normal for our wounded child parts to be running our show. And that's why I think it's great that we're starting to do this work so we can actually recognize what's going on and then pop the adult in charge. I've got some processes that you will see that's going to help you with exactly doing that. But really, it's going to be tuning in, is the adult in charge or is the child part in charge? And then completing one of the processes to put the adult back in charge. That is overall what we're going to be doing here. And the more you do it, the wounded parts actually just settle a lot more and they calm a lot more. The thing is, we typically don't like these parts of ourselves and we try to avoid it. And food is a really great way to numb all of this stuff out. But if you think about, a toddler, if you really didn't give the toddler any attention or love or take care of it, you're probably going to see the behaviors just get worse and worse and worse. And it's the same. You got to almost treat these parts like, seeing a 5-year-old version of yourself, as you would your own child or grandchild or a niece or nephew or a friend's child, for instance. That's the way. It's almost like reparenting is what we're going to be doing, these young wounded parts, and they appreciate it so much when we give them attention and we listen to them and we validate them and we see them and then we soothe them and settle them, and that allows the adult to step in and take over. So I hope this is all resonating with you. So this is another way of seeing it. And so if we often what we do is we just see our eating behaviors, right? So we just see the mindless eating, the craving, the habits, and that's all we see. And then we blame ourselves and we think we don't have enough willpower and control. And we don't appreciate this is actually what's going on at a deeper surface. So this is kind of, I always say this work is like layers. It's like an onion. So if you think about it, there's an outer layer here, and this is one of my eating saboteurs. So there's 6 of these. And so this saboteur is the rebel, okay? So when the rebel is in charge of your eating, the thoughts are, stuff it, I'm going to eat. She knows what to eat, but she does the opposite. And it's rebelling against control, judgment, and societal expectations. This rebel I see come out a lot, particularly if you grew up in a very controlled environment, whether that was having food controlled or very strict upbringing. It's like the rebel comes out and says, stuff it, years and years later. Also, another one is if, a parent had narcissistic traits and everything, or very, very critical, this one can come out as well. So the rebel lives in your anxious pathway. Remember, from anxious and functional freeze, you're in survival mode and it feels unsafe and dysregulated. But what's underneath the rebel is a wounded child part. So another way of seeing this is the eating saboteur. So anytime you're eating, and when I say eating, I'm talking about that non-hungry eating, whether that's a binge, whether that's mindless eating, any habit that you have in place. The eating saboteur is a protector of your young wounded part. So this wounded part is in charge, but we eat so we don't have to feel and connect in with this wounded child part. But the processes that I'm sharing with you mean that we don't need to eat because we're going to connect in with that wounded child part and we're going to take care of her from now on. The next eating saboteur that also sits in the anxious pathway is our distractor. So this is anytime you're looking outside of yourself, you are on a million committees, you're busy, looking after everyone else, maybe looking after special needs kids, looking after elderly parents. Everyone's needs come before yours. And then you're eating due to exhaustion and busyness. And the distraction is distracting from your own thoughts and feelings within and being in the present moment. So this is more of a doing profile. And again, it's protecting a young wounded part. Then the next one, sitting in the anxious pathway as well, is the inner critic. So it's like you're going to fail, you're not good enough, you're not perfect. And this is sort of eating to relieve the pressure from the judgment and the criticism. So it's critical. If I beat myself up, it will give me more motivation to change. And of course, that never happens. Then we have the functional freeze, eating saboteurs. So we have the numbing out. So it's all too hard. I need to switch off, watching TV and eating, and really numbing out from expectations, stress, challenges, caretaking, responsibility, and even numbing out from overwhelm, feeling that overwhelm, because chances are you've been sitting in the anxious pathway all day, you drop to functional freeze and eat. And again, these saboteurs are protecting these young wounded parts. The next one is the defeatist. This is in functional freeze. So it's all too hard to change. You give up. And the defeatist believes you can't have longer term change. So why bother trying because you're only going to fail? And then finally, we have the avoider sitting in functional freeze. So this is the I'll start again, I'll be good tomorrow. So we eat today and we hope to wake up and something magical happens in our sleep that we're going to do better tomorrow. And of course, that tomorrow never comes. And then we just repeat the next day, repeat in that vicious cycle. So the avoider repeats the same habits, hoping something magical will change. And of course, it doesn't. So have a reflection on which eating saboteur might be playing out for you and just having a bit more awareness that it's the wounded child part that you're eating here. So you don't have to feel in here, this wounded child part. And then finally, I've just created a little reflection planner. And you can feel free to print this out, but this is just completely optional, but it can help some of you just to create some more clarity around really identifying when the wounded child is in charge versus the adult self. So here's a little bit of a daily reflection. So what triggered me today? So remember, this is the trigger from the adult to the child. Now, often it can be a feeling that can trigger you, like stress, overwhelm, disappointment, etc. It could be a transition, so a transition from work to home, from day to night, from being around people to being alone, or it could be an event that happened, like a stressful event, a big meeting, etc. So I want you just to really keep an eye on the triggers. Sometimes they're very obvious, but a lot of the time I find they're very, very subtle, and it will be more of a feeling that you haven't really been aware of, or a transition. What emotions did you feel? Were you anxious, stressed? Was there shame? Was there disappointment, sad, hurt, etc.? Uh, Responses. So did I react? So when I got triggered, did I go straight for the food or avoid or excuses? Or did I respond? Did I lean into the discomfort? Did I complete a process? Did I notice any saboteurs at play? So was there the critic, the avoider, just the saboteurs we went through? And then shifting to adult 2.0 self, how can I respond differently next time? So really what we want to be doing is we want to be tuning in. And remember, adult is here and child is here, okay, in our pathway. So we're always going to be moving down the ladder, but the key is to recognize when you have been triggered, okay? So the first trigger will be moving to the anxious pathway, and then responding by moving up the ladder versus doing nothing and moving down the ladder, because this is often when we're eating in this functional freeze to numb it all out. So have a think about just something you can do every day when you're tuning in to keep moving up the ladder, keep moving up the ladder, keep moving up the ladder. It could be something as simple as getting a cup of tea instead of getting the chocolate, going out in nature, or walk around the block when you need a break at work versus going to the kitchen. Really be tuned in, like, what do you need? What are you truly craving? Because I can guarantee you're not craving the food. You're craving the feeling the food is giving you, like the relief, the relaxation, the me time. How can you get that in another way that is quite simple to do in the moment? A butterfly hug. Try these processes for these little wounded child as well that you can try in the moment to move up the ladder. Every time you move up the ladder, you're putting version 2 adult in charge. What's one small step that I can take to prioritize myself today? Yeah. And what self-care or boundary can I implement? So this is all, we just want simple things. Remember, version 2 adult is small, simple steps consistently, and celebrate every single small win and acknowledge every single small win. And a nervous system check-in. So you can use this as well. And what's one small thing I can do to move up the ladder? So that's just can help you, just a few journal prompts just to write it all down. That can really help with your processing as well. So I hope this has been really helpful. Have a play around with the tools. And it's very much around noticing triggers. When you're triggered, you are in survival mode. A child part is in charge. This is when we would normally eat, but we want to soothe the child parts instead with these processes. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. I hope today's episode gave you something new to think about and inspired you to step into your version 2 thriving self. Make sure you check out my free downloads, my ebook, and case studies to dig deeper. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It really does help to reach more listeners just like you.